So, yeah, hello, welcome to this session to accelerate time to value with Adobe Experience Manager. So, in this session, what we'll cover is basically the 3 steps here. First, from site creation, second, to then customize the site, and then third part, we will jump also a little bit into the headless topics and how you can actually also satisfy all the needs for modern frameworks with AEM. And with this session, I would like to give you a little bit of an overview of following features in AEM. That is basically the UI kit that we have for Adobe XD so that you can start designing your experience. Then the project archetype, the core components that compose the whole experience, template editor, and then we'll jump a little bit into the headless topics with how you can use content fragments and SPA editors as well for your application. So basically, I'm product manager for most of these features here and working for Adobe on these features since a number of years. And the goal here really is not just to build one website quickly, but how you can build a website so that your authors can manage the website content at scale. And really the challenge here is to allow also the possibility for customizations, because every project, usually an AEM project is an enterprise scale project. So you need to account for very different needs, and it's not just an out of the box features that you want to use. You want also then to go beyond all of that and be able to customize things. That would go beyond this presentation. However, I will just show really how to get kickstarted here, how you can very quickly set up your project with these features. So first, let's take a look at this UI kit. It is basically a set of mocks that allow your designers to very quickly check out what components exist and to be able to create a design that corresponds to the components that exist out of the box. Because the challenge is, if designers start to create designs and mocks with very wild ideas, it is all possible, obviously, to implement it with AEM, but it will also be much more effort than if the designer had been informed that there is a set of out-of-the-box components, and when possible, they should stick to these components and use those. And only if there is really a need to do something different, to have something custom, they can go and create these custom components. So let me quickly show you one of these files, how they look. So this is basically the default file that we provide. And the goal here is really that you can go in and customize the colors, you can customize the fonts, you can change how things are looking. So it is just here how by default the breadcrumb could be looking. And it is then to the designer to really go in here and first customize maybe the colors and all the typography that they want. The sizes, the spacings, and all these things can be customized. So these are really here, we see some of the core components that we do have. And then we see at the end also like a footer and a header, how they are looking, and other kind of components. Now, if you go in there, first thing you do, yeah, like I told you, is change these colors. So you would probably end up with something like that, where you have your custom colors. You maybe added on top some of the favorite icons or logos that you have, and you change all these to fit the needs of your branding. Then once you're done with that and you went through the whole file here and did all these changes, you can actually start creating more artboards in XD to really create the pages that are using these components. So this here for the weekend site, this is really an example website, a reference website that we provide out of our tutorial. So there is also a corresponding weekend tutorial, and the goal is that you're able to achieve this tutorial easily in the time that you would have available during a weekend, or basically 2 days. So in 2 days, you should be able to go through this tutorial. It goes beyond what I'm presenting here. This tutorial is really also showing you then how you can customize further the components and how you can create custom components as well. But basically, that's the idea. You have then these designs, and what I want to show you in this presentation is how you can achieve this design quite easily with AEM. So once you have these designs, what you will do is that you get started then with the archetype. And the archetype is what bootstraps your website. It is creating a very basic website with just one page out of the box available there. And you can then take this minimalistic website, add content to it, and add CSS to it, and make it look like something in the weekend tutorial. Then you can go beyond as well and add your own customizations and other further components that you might need. So what I will do actually in the scope also of this presentation here is that I'm executing this command line in the command line tool, and we'll see how that does create a website for us. So let me quickly actually escape the presentation mode so that I can operate a little bit better my computer here. And what we do is run this command line that I've shown in the presentation as well. And what it will do is, whoopsie, let me just go back and remove the previous test that I did here, because I had created this obviously already before. But yeah, let me delete this folder and run now this command line tool here. So recreating the whole thing and setting up everything. So this is quite fast, actually, this whole generation of the project. What then takes a little bit longer is the whole compilation of this project. If we want to compile it, what we have to do once it's completed and all the files are created is to run Maven command line. So I then go into this weekend folder, and I can now run Maven clean install. And this command now will really build the whole project that we just generated and deploy it as well to my AEM instance. So yeah, I do have AEM running there. AEM running is just basically this little window. And what we'll do basically here is to build something like what you can do also with the weekend tutorial. So this is the whole tutorial. If you want to dive into this yourself, you can follow this tutorial and you can achieve the same thing. And what we started with is basically this archetype. This archetype is this open source project that you have here. This bootstraps your source code project and creates all the files that you need. And eventually, the weekend tutorial will look something like this website. It is hosted here at this URL. This is the end result that you will have after completing this tutorial. What I'm having also is basically source files of these weekend sites. And I'll take, to accelerate here the work, some of the files from this project that has been created already. So that is the completed weekend site. So if you want to cheat and immediately go to the result, you can take that. And I will shoot a little bit because I will not obviously rewrite the whole CSS and everything. So I'll take basically the files that are already ready to use in this in these folders from this completed project. So let's see where we are. The project is still building. And while it is building, maybe I can give you a quick introduction into the project structure that it has created. So the weekend project looks like that. It has a lot of folders. Don't be afraid by these folders. It's not really something that should scare you, because yeah, in AEM you can build quite big things. There are a lot of parts to AEM, and this is why we do have a lot of folders. But we will spend our time actually mostly in the front end folder here, and a little bit also in the content folder, because we do need some content as well to be set up. The rest is really just actually like the core folder is like all the Java stuff that you could deploy into AEM. The dispatcher is everything that runs in front of AEM to cache and also limit the access to AEM to certain parts of AEM only. So it's kind of a security layer as well as caching layer. You have the tests, ID tests, but we also have some more modern tests here. We do have some front-end tests here that are basically built with WebDriver IO. So if you, this is a new part of the archetype, you can check it out as well. So this WebDriver is really nice because it allows you to have a node instance that simulates a browser, and that allows you to do much more realistic testing on your site. So the front-end build is basically where we have all the front-end code, all the CSS and JavaScript. It uses Webpack to build. You could use anything else, obviously, as well. We do use Webpack here. It's just our choice. And then you have some configurations as well, and the components. We'll come back to what components are, but these are in this folder here. So the build is still going on. As you can see, it does take a while to compile all these folders, to build all of that. And eventually, what we will get when this is completed is something like what we have on this screenshot. So this is basically the result that we'll see in a second, this single web page that we can then start modifying. So until this is done, we can quickly look into the core components. The core components are basically what builds the whole website. It is really the atoms that compose the website. And we do have a number of default components out of the box. These are called the core components. And we have a showcase of all these components on this amcomponents.dev website that we can quickly have a look at. And there you will see the full list of components that we do have ready out of the box. What is really useful here is that it allows you to take a look at what these components do and what they are. Like if I look at the teaser component, for example, I see how this teaser component does look like, but I also can see the markup that it renders. So if I want to style it without having to customize it, if this markup is good enough for me, I could just go ahead and write some CSS for this markup, and that is then good enough. Or if I'm building a single page application, this is what I'll show a little bit later. I could also expose all the content of this component via this JSON format. And you see then basically on this page, the teaser component in different forms and fashions. So here we have it with a background image, and then we have it with call to action, or even with multiple call to actions. So that is, these are the core components, and they are really quite well featured. We are putting a lot of effort into these core components to make them as fully featured as possible out of the box. So first, they can really be combined in a number of ways that allow you to build almost any kind of website. They're very basic and flexible, so you can combine images, buttons, titles, and create almost any kind of thing, any kind of experience. So then they are also having a good HTML output that is accessible and friendly for search engine optimization. So these components should, or experiences built with these components should really perform well on Google and other search systems. Then they also feature a JSON output, like I have quickly shown you, so that you can also use these components to build progressive web app and single page applications. And then we also have a data layer now on these components, so they are out of the box, ready to be tracked and to really track everything that the visitor does on the web page. So what has the visitor clicked? What has been displayed to the visitor? What has been shown? All these events can be tracked through the Adobe Client data layer, which is basically an event-driven data layer that you can use on the pages. And now we also have AMP support, so that's accelerated mobile pages. That's a format from Google that allows the pages to be really blazing fast when you come from a Google search result. It is something that will make your application really super quick and display instantaneously when you're coming from a Google search result. And then they're obviously extensible and open sourced. All right, so let's have a look. Our script or build has completed. So all the modules have been built and they also have now been deployed to my instance. So let's take a quick look at our instance. So this is AEM. We can now go into the sites part and we should see if everything has been working as planned. This new example website that displays. So it takes a little bit of a while to load because I have just restarted my instance before, and the caches have also been invalidated since I have built a new website. So yeah, it's taking abnormally long, which is a little bit strange. So my site should be running there. What is going on? And maybe shift reload, force reload this page. That works better. Force reload helps. Don't know why, but here we go. Here we do have our website. And it is really simple. You see, it is one page. We have this intermediate structure that allows globalization here. So it allows to not only translate the site and have different languages, but also to have different markets. So here we have typically just one US market, but you could have many different countries, different markets, and have these languages that are repeated under each market. You would have every language that this market has to be repeated. Then we can select here this page and open it with the edit button, which will open the page editor. And here again, it takes a little while to load because it's the first time I'm opening this site on this instance. And here I do have a local host instance. This is the best way to develop. Obviously, with AEM as a cloud service, you then deploy all of that on your cloud instance that would be running in the cloud. Once you're good with the code, you would deploy that this way. And yeah, here we go. We do have the page. And as you see, it's really basic. It has a hello world component to show a little bit how a custom component can be built. If you now would like to start creating some content, you could actually just get started. You would probably start with deleting this example component here and put your own content here in place. And this is really what we are going to do now. We're going to go into this content folder, and we could have taken now what this weekend example site has already as content. And actually their content is inside of the UI content sample folder. So if we had taken these content here and placed it into the weekend site under my UI content part and overwrite everything here, replace it, then if I had built my entire site that way and run now basically the same build script again, then I would have seen this this content there. It would have shown the actual content. Now, I will not rerun the whole installation script, right? It's taking way too long. So I'll take a little shortcut, and I'm basically now cheating here, putting the content that is ready, deploying that on this instance. And now if I refresh the page here, I will see this new content that will appear. So let me quickly deploy this. I run the small deployment script here, and now we should be good. I can now refresh this page and see the whole updated content. So again, it will take a little while to load because it basically invalidated again the whole cache, because tons of content have just been created in the background as I was speaking. And what we'll see in a second is basically the same website, but with much nicer content. All right. So it's a little bit of patience here. Okay. A lot of patience, maybe. Yeah, it's because we have now much more content, and it needs to recreate a lot of that. Yeah, there we go. So you see here the same website, still looking quite sad, but we at least have some nicer content to display. And yeah, we are actually quite far along a website that does already look a little bit like this end result that we want. Obviously, all the CSS is still lacking, doesn't have any of that. But here in the page structure, you will see also the whole content structure that has been created, much more content here. And this is really a nice starting point. And this also illustrates how you can actually get started with creating the content of the website, even maybe before you have all the components completed. Maybe you don't need all the CSS to be finished yet. You can already start to scaffold some content. You can just put it there, put your carousel. These are all working even without much CSS. This is really just this default CSS that is coming out of the box, right? So there is not much there that needs to be built upfront. You can really just get started very quickly and in a very agile way. So as you're creating that, you can easily imagine that your front-end developers are working in parallel of your content authors who are working as well. So this is really one, I think, strength of the core components, is to allow this to be possible. Now, I will now jump into the next stage, which is again taking something from the weekend side. So this time what I will do is to take all the front-end content. So maybe before I do that, let me quickly open this folder and show you how this folder looks. So let me just open Sublime text editor and show you a little bit this UI front-end folder. So yeah, again, a lot of files, but don't let you impress by those. Basically, what really matters here is the package JSON that gives the instruction of all the tools that we're using here to build. And what you then, the only folder that you really need to care about is the source folder, where we have a Webpack folder in there. We have actually all the CSS that is prepared as SCSS, like SAS. And you see for every component, we have the class names that are prepared for you to fill out, so that you can easily go in and create the CSS for every component as you want. You can easily implement that. The starting point here, the starting initialization, is basically in the site folder. it's the main TypeScript. This is really the entry point of the build script here, or of this, what is being built. So you see that this will import the main SCSS file, which does further include the variables that we have here, the base script, and then, yeah, all these SCSS files that are under the components, and also some special styles that we maybe can put into the style folder. That's for a feature that we have to create different styles for each component. So that is also available there. Right, so basically here, everything is empty, more or less. We don't have much. Now, as I told you, basically what we can do is to take this UI frontend folder from the weekend side and place it into our own weekend folder, move it there, and overwrite that part. So I will not do that here because, again, I would have to rebuild the whole thing with the same Maven clean install command line. That would take quite a while, again, to deploy everything. So here again, I will just quickly deploy the CSS in the background, and make sure that I can then simply refresh this page. And as it's refreshing, it will actually show the new CSS that we have deployed here. So again, it takes a little bit of time because it's rebuilding the whole caches and everything for the third time now. But eventually, we'll really have kind of proven the point that you take the archetype, you just add some content, you add some CSS, and yeah, archetype plus content plus CSS really gives you a fully functional and good-looking website that you could go live with very quickly. So this is really worth, I think, to consider and to look into this weekend tutorial that brings you step by step through the whole process there. So let's hope that this thing will soon complete the loading, that everything is built, and then let me quickly go on. Let's wait for that. All right, there we go. And now, if you look closely, it is really hard to spot the difference with the live website, but there is one difference here, I can tell you, because there is one thing missing here. It's the list of recent articles. And this is really one of the example components that the weekend tutorial will do on top of what I've done here. It will show you how you can build such a component. So basically, these recent articles, here they are on the live website. They are displaying then this list of items, of articles that you could look at and use. So let me quickly show you a little bit the template editor now. So that is now item number 4, to quickly create your websites. And it has been something that you haven't seen really in the process, because I just told you all you need to do is to create some content, but actually some of the content was to create also the templates that are needed for these web pages. And the templates are defining basically what page header, what page footer you have on your pages, as well as what columns of content you can fill out as an author, if it's a single column layout or a multiple column layout, and so on. Then we also have the responsive capability that allow you to define, typically if you have multiple columns, how they should reflow, if one should go under the other, or if how they react on different breakpoints. And also for different components, you can configure that. Then you can also define the components that are allowed. So this is basically, here you see a screenshot of the template editor on the bottom, where you see the list of allowed components that the authors will be allowed to drop on this page. And for each of these components, you can also configure what edit capabilities are available for the authors. So we'll quickly look at that. And finally, you can also define styles for the components. So that's one thing I told you that you can also have in your front-end build process, right? There was a folder that was specific for styles. And yes, you can have different styles for your components, and that's configured also in the template editor. So here we have our page. And from this page, I can now edit the templates easily, which opens the template editor. And there I can go in and configure all of what I just told you. So the template editor is really, I think, an essential piece to avoid having to build a lot of custom components. The template editor is very flexible to allow an author to build a lot of things without any code. So here you see typically the header is actually what we call an experience fragment. An experience fragment is kind of a reusable piece of content. So if we'd go in and edit this experience fragment, we'd see that it's actually composed out of multiple components, like an image for the logo, the language navigation, the actual navigation, and the search component. And because we have multiple templates that all use the same header, we have created this header once as an experience fragment, and all the templates are just referencing this. Same thing goes for the footer. And in between, we just have a container that we have marked to be editable. So to mark it to be editable, it's basically this lock icon that we must open so that the authors can edit this section. So this opening this lock will tell that authors can modify this content on the page. So with that, we actually have the template that is configured and this content area that is then allowed to be used for the authors. And they can then drag the components that you have allowed to be configured in this section, to be used in this section. So these are basically all the core components that we see here that we can drag now on the page. So if I would like to add, I don't know, another teaser component, maybe on top of the page, I could just take this teaser component, add it on top there. I maybe want to define an image for that. And I can then modify this, the content. So that would be to define first where this should go. What is the link? Where should which page to which page do I want to link this teaser? So I can then pick a page. I could choose any page, I don't know. Let's take something from the magazine. So like the LA skate parks, sounds good for that. Then in the text part, actually, I don't really have to feel much. I can actually take the title from the page. I could even take the description from the page. And that would actually give me a meaningful teaser already here. All right, so that is for the usage here. Back to the templates here, I can also configure basically for a teaser component what is possible to be configured. So for a teaser component, I can typically define if I want authors to be able to use a title or not, or what would be the default title size, or a lot of configurations are really possible here to be able to control for every component what aspects the authors are allowed to use and to edit. And then I also have this style system, as you see here. So this allows me to define different styles for the teaser and to bind every style with a CSS class name that will be injected. So this is really powerful because with that, I can avoid to create new components just for different visual variations of the component. I can always use the same component. I just need one teaser component, and I can configure here what the authors will be allowed to use and to apply, which styles they can use. So let's, for instance, look at, I don't know, this is a teaser here, and the style system materializes then for the author through this drop-down menu that is available, where they can choose between different ways how the teaser is displayed. So this is really just applying a different CSS class name to the teaser component. And I can then switch between these different views and make it look different ways and just apply different styles here. So this is really powerful. And so back to the template editor, it is really a very essential part of AEM, because the template editor allows you to avoid to create many different page components. You just need one page component. You can configure what header you want, what footer you want. It allows you to avoid creating many components, because instead of needing 5 teasers, I can just define 5 different styles for one teaser, configure those on the template editor, and I can then use them as an author on the page. I can easily apply them to my components. So that's for the template editor. And now I would like to jump a little bit into content fragments and headless topics. So we have seen now how we can really quickly build a website and customize a website. But what if you have a single page application? How, for a single page application, can you easily reuse content from AEM? And this is shown with the experience fragments. We can actually go into assets. Experience fragments are stored along with your asset files. So assets are really the images that you use for your website. So let me go in here and look at some assets. So here I do have things like, let's open the adventures, for instance. Let's go in. Oh, it's taking some time to load. Good. Yeah, there we go. So here we do have actually all the, whoops, what happened? Just went back. Here we have all the adventures that are featured on the website. And the adventure are actually just a set of images and this content fragment. So a content fragment is a piece of content that is actually agnostic from how it will be presented. It is just a form, basically, that you can edit. And this form is basically what the author must fill out. And then we can define later how they will look when we place them on a page. Or if you have a single page application, you can also access them with different JSON APIs so that you can easily get this content out of AEM. So this is here one of these experience fragments. And you see how I can easily edit that as an author. It's really headless content here. And I could just query this headless content out of AEM. But I can also place this content on a page. So if we actually navigate, let's quickly navigate to a page. Let's go to preview mode so that we can quickly navigate to an experience, to an adventure. Let's go there. And go to one of the adventure pages. Oh, yeah, it doesn't list the adventures. Anyway, because I don't have the list component implemented yet. So I have to access it through the site admin. Let's do that then. And on the sites admin, I open the adventure page that corresponds. There we go. And on this adventure page, you will see the content fragment component that is used. Oh, this is taking a long time to load. This is the issue with actually not really building the whole site live. So here we have the content fragment component, and we have actually configured that it uses which basically content fragment it should display on the page and which fields it should display from this content fragment on the page. So this is then allowing me to really surface this content easily on the page And with the style system on top of that, I can then give it a look that makes it look really like I want, because I have a default style that doesn't look like much, doesn't look really beautiful, but I have these elements, adventure elements style that makes it look like it is an adventure. So yeah, this is really the content fragments, but you see how you can use it on an HTML page. You imagine how you can easily query this JSON for a single page application. But the last thing I would like to quickly show you is the SPA editor. And the SPA editor is really because we would like to, it is a feature to use the page editor with something that has been implemented with a full single page application framework. And the goal here is to not only allow you to do headless authoring, which is what you can do with content fragments, but also headless delivery is basically deliver JSON, but still also have in-context authoring. So let me quickly show you that. I do have another React website here that is ready, and where I can actually go in and do some edits in the page editor. But actually, this website is an entire React application. So it has all been implemented with React, and it just doesn't really require any server-side rendering. You can add on top of it, obviously, server-side rendering. If you do isomorphic JavaScript, you can render it also server-side. But really, this is the website. If I go to preview, I can navigate, and the pages really load instantaneously because it's a single page application where everything has been pre-populated. It's very simple application, as you can see, but I can really fully author it. I can add content. If I want to add an image to it, I can add an image. So let me add maybe, I don't know, again, maybe our skater. What's going on? The editor is not properly initialized. Yeah, there we go. Again, and we add this skater to the page. You can easily drop it somewhere like below the title and do all the editing that would be used to do. So I can even do this responsive layout, right, where on the wider breakpoint, these components are taking each a third of the width, while actually if you're on a smaller breakpoint, they go one below the other. And to kind of prove the point here that all of this is really a single page application, I can view this page as published and look into the sources of this page. And I would see that in the body of my page, I have no content. Everything is really loaded asynchronously from the React implementation that I do have here. And it is doing a JSON query that goes to basically this page.model .json. This is basically what will be queried, and here I do get all the JSON content of my page, and still I can do all the in-context editing. So you don't really have to choose whether you want now to use headless delivery and you are then forced into headless authoring. You can really mix and match. You can use headless delivery but do in-context authoring, or you can have a content fragment with headless authoring but deliver it through HTML and have basically HTML delivery. So you can really mix and match both. And I think this is one of the big strengths of AEM, because you're not tied to really make a choice. You can really use both here. So that's it. I wanted to quickly show you how you can quickly create a site. You can customize it. So to create the site, we have these XD kit, which is the best way to get started for designers to design something that makes sense. You have the archetype that bootstraps your website very quickly. And then you can start customizing this site with the core components and the template editor. And finally, if you're really building something headless, you can do that as well with content fragments and SPA editor. And we have tons of other tools also for SPA, but this is really the two big things. And we have 3 tutorials here that you can use to get started quickly. So these 3 tutorials, I think, are the best starting points. Whether you do a fully fledged website, then you have the standard weekend tutorial. If you do a mobile web app, actually, then you can use the second tutorial. And if you do a mobile native app, then you can use the third tutorial. So the third is really like consuming the content fragments directly, while the second tutorial is using this SPA editor. So that's it for me. I don't know if we have any questions, but I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.